Symposiast. I'm Dr. Angela Puca, Religious Studies PhD and University Lecturer, and this is your online resource for the academic study of magic, esotericism, paganism, shamanism, and all things occult. As you know, part of my project is trying to bridge the gap between the community of the ivory tower or the academics and the community of practitioners. And it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you someone who is a practitioner, but with a very, very scholarly approach. So thank you very much, Aaron, to have accepted my invitation to be on Angela's Symposium, and welcome here. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and thank you. I'm really honored that you asked me to come on today. So this is really awesome. I'm a huge fan of your channel. Like you and Justin Sledge, you guys are the goats. You guys are who I, like YouTube is a terrible place to learn anything except for those two channels. So I'm really honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself for those who are not familiar with your work and with your origin story?
Oh, wow. Yes, I hate this part, but okay. So my name is Aaron Leitch, Father Aaron Leitch. I'm a Gnostic priest. I'm also a Hermeticist and a member of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And I am also the proprietor of Doc Solomon's Occult Curios online, where we sell traditional old magic materials. I'm also an author, of course, author of Secrets of the Magical Grimoires, which is an exploration of the Solomonic system of magic, which is one of my specialties. I've also written the Angelical Language, volumes 1 and 2, and the Essential Enochian Grimoire, which they're kind of a trilogy that explores most of John Dee and Edward Kelley's Enochian system of magic, and obviously the language that they transcribed. And that's who I am. I think I covered almost everything.
And for people that are not very familiar and also that want to know your perspective on it, what is Enochian Magic?
What is Enochian Magic? Well, okay. It's either Enochian or Enochian. I've said Enochian for years because I'm an American from Florida. So we say the prophet Enoch. We don't say the prophet Enoch. But more recently, I've spent some time with Dr. Sledge. And as a Jewish man, I heard him several times refer to the prophet Enoch. And, of course, in Hebrew, it's Hanok. So it actually can be Enochian. And I know that seems like an aside, but there's a lot of people right now that are flabbergasted that I'm admitting that it can be called Enochian after all these years. But what it really is in the late 1500s, Dr. John Dee, who was the court astrologer and advisor and kind of the court philosopher for Queen Elizabeth I, he was, I could go on about this man for hours. He's one of my heroes, but extremely important man in that era of English history, very influential in the founding of the New World. Just the rise of the British Empire had Dee behind it in many ways, for better or worse. But he decided toward the end of his life that he had explored pretty much all the knowledge that humans at the time in the 1500s had acquired. He had mastered mathematics, cartography, cryptography, history, languages, everything. He had it all. And so he decided the only avenue left was to go the way of the old prophets and see what the angels of heaven had to teach. So he hired some scryers. He had a series of them, but he ended up settling on Edward Kelley, who was a very natural and talented scryer, regardless of all the other shady stuff about him. And the two of them set out to contact the angels. And the very first thing the angels did was say, hey, let me go back a minute. To contact the angels, Dee and Kelley were using Solomonic methods. So they were using the Key of Solomon, Agrippa's 3 books, the Heptameron, Liber Juratus. So these classical grimoire texts. But as soon as they contacted the angels, the first thing they did was said, this is all great, but we can give you better versions of all of this. So they gave him a new holy table, a new almadel, a new magic ring, all the Solomonic stuff. They gave him improved angelic versions of those. And that is the basis of what we call Enochian magic. It's called Enochian because part of what the angels gave him was a book that purported to contain the tables of heaven that the prophet Enoch had actually transcribed while he was in heaven. But those were lost in the flood. So the angels told Dee and Kelley, we're giving them back to humanity now through you. And so since Enoch had been the first to see those tables, Dee ended up calling that book the Book of Enoch, even though it's not to be confused with what we know as the Book of Enoch, but he called it Enoch's book. And so from there, the system became known as Enochian. And that is its origin. I always teach my students that what you see in the grimoires is just first contact material. That's all it is. It's intended to open the doors and get you in communication with the angels or spirits, and then they will teach you the real magic. And the Enochian system is a prime, perfect example of that. He contacted angels, and they gave him a whole new system, and that system, being 100% derived from angelic minds and sources, is extremely potent and powerful.
And you said that that Dee is one of your heroes. What is about him that fascinates you so much? What is about Enochian Magic that fascinates you so much?
Just, his time and place and the influence he had on it. Like I said, he had mastered every aspect of human knowledge. Now, I say that from a Eurocentric and kind of a British-centric sense. Like he didn't know anything about African religions. He didn't know anything. There's a lot he didn't know, but he felt, at least from within his perspective, he had learned everything that he could go to an English or a European, I should say, university to learn. So he just went on he just had this massive impact. He coined the term British Empire. The Queen wasn't even thinking in the terms of empire. He told the Queen that she needed to get ships to the New World because Spain was colonizing the lower portion of the east coast of what would be the U.S. And so he said, we need to get over there now. And that's why we have New England in the north, and we have all the we have Spanish names like Florida in the south. He was the master cryptographer, like Raleigh, one of the famous explorers who founded the first colony in the New World, went to Dee's house and said, how do I work this navigation equipment to get over there safely? The Queen's spy master, Walsingham, went to Dee to learn how to do cryptography. The British spy network became, over the years, world famous, and it was world famous for its ability to send spies out and communicate through cryptography, and that came from Dee. Dee was the one, again, as an expert navigator, he found the routes to go north from the UK to Russia. And he is the reason that trade routes were established between Russia and England. So, England would not exist as we know it. And then that means neither would the US without John Dee. It's almost like so much Western history funnels, almost like with Plato. It all funnels to Plato and then all comes from Plato. And then Dee is the same thing. All of our shared history between the UK and the US funnels down through Dee. And then it just amazes me the influence he had. And that's before we even get into the magic and his ability to conjure angels and Kelley's scrying ability. And that fascinates me. So yeah, just all around, there's nothing that's not fascinating about the guy. He had his flaws, don't get me wrong. I don't idolize him. But what an influential person, it's just like I could go on for hours.
I can tell that you're very passionate about him. I think I feel the same about Giordano Bruno. People that have seen my episode on Giordano Bruno, you can see that I'm like very excited about him. But I was thinking, how much of the influence that he's had do you think that had to do with his esoteric endeavors? If
that's
it is a
harder
question
to
that can be
say.
answered, yeah.
Yeah, well, most of what we know as Dee of Dee as being a wizard is from later in his life. So I would say most of his secular, I guess, most of his just real world accomplishments and influence, like in the Queen's court and in the New World and in the foundation of the British Empire, the trade routes, all that stuff I brought up, kind of happened before he started talking to the angels. Now, if you ask what influence has he had on the occult world through his magic, it's not even definable. Those documents were found, twice, once in the bottom of a false chest, and I think the others were buried on his property somewhere. And once we had those material, from the Golden Dawn until, before the Golden Dawn, you had Rudd and you had Levi. I don't know if Levi messed with Enochian, actually. But anyway, you had guys before the Golden Dawn and then the Golden Dawn. and they just ate Enochian up. And the influence they've had on Western occultism is also incalculable. So if you consider that the Enochian system, at least as they understood it, was kind of behind a lot of that and underpinned a lot of that, then yeah, its influence is just huge. And like, for instance, even in neo-paganism, if you've ever gone into a circle and drawn the pentagrams and the quarters and called, oh, ye great guardians of the watchtower of the east, that's Enochian. That comes from the Golden Dawn. Dee didn't do anything like that, but they were using Dee's material to make that ritual. It's called the Greater Ritual of the Pentagram. So anytime you've called guardians of watchtowers, the watchtowers are from the Enochian system. So yeah, it's huge. Its impact is huge in magic and mysticism.
And hello to Marco Visconti and Irene, who are in the chat.
Hey, Marco.
And so can you walk us through the process of the books that you have written and research you've done for them? The ones related to Enochian magic and language.
Yeah, it really started with Secrets of the Grimoires. I was already writing the Angelical language books when Llewellyn contacted me and wanted me to publish with them. And I asked them at that time, would you rather, I'm already working on this big dictionary, this lexicon of the Angelical language, but I'm also kind of starting on an exploration of Solomonic magic. Which one would you want? And they were like, oh, hands down, the Solomonic stuff. So I wrote the Secrets of the Grimoires first, and that was kind of a stealth primer. I mean, it's very obviously a primer for Solomonic magic, but it was a stealth primer for Enochian and Abramelin magic. So if you read Secrets of the Grimoires, you'll have the basis you need to understand those systems. And then from Secrets, I went ahead and finished the Angelical language. That was a 900-page book that they split into two. And that one took me a good 10 years to write, I think. Just going through Dee's records word by word, analyzing every letter. I mean, it took a very, very, very long time.
How did you go through these records?
Oh, geez. Well, first of all, I literally sat down with his journals and just read them like a novel. I started at page 1 and read every single page, every footnote, everything. And then, of course, when I went to write the books, I went back and I actually published this. It's called the Enochian Saga. I wrote a series of notes where I just took Dee's big, thick journals and reduced them down to just the magic stuff. And I even color coded it. So, like blue was anything about Liber Loga, and pink was anything, just highlighters. Pink was anything about the tools, and then, yellow was anything about the language. I mean, it just went on like that. And when it came to the lexicon itself, and this was a lot of fun, I simply sat down. I started with the keys, the angelical keys. I don't want to assume anyone knows what I'm talking about, but there are these 48 poems that are they're invocations that are part of the Enochian system. And they're written entirely in the Angelical language. So I simply sat down with the first call, the first word, which I called 1.1. I was copying Jeffrey James in that. And the second call is 1.2. The second word is 1.2, then 1.3. And I would start with the first word, which was ol, O-L. And I went word by word by word by word through all 48 calls, looking for those two letters or any other word that had the same or a similar definition to that word. And then when I got to the end, I went to 1.2. And I completely, what do they call it? I manhandled it. I did, and, there was no automation or anything. It was just grunt work, sitting there for hours after hours. And of course, I didn't stop with the calls. I went through the rest of Dee's journals. I got every time the angels spoke in their own language, I would catch that and put it in the lexicon. So that was the process. I mean, it was just grunt work, just straight, nothing fancy or exciting or anything, just straight letter by letter comparison of every single thing. It was fun.
And the Angelical language is often described as one of the most unique features of the system. In your research, what do you think is the true role of this language? Is it primarily symbolic? Is it operative? Is it both, or something else?
Well, put very straight and simple, D, who existed kind of around the same time as like Pico, Marandola, and the other guys who were trying to formulate a Christian version of the Jewish Kabbalah. And D was trying to do the same thing. We don't really give him credit for that these days. We think he was trying to create the Enochian system. He wasn't. He wanted a Christian Kabbalah. And so when he contacted these angels, they gave him a new sacred language. And his intent for the angelical language from the very beginning was for it to be the Western sacred language. I mean, the Jewish people had Hebrew, and of course, in the West we had Greek and Latin that we would use. But he wanted something that would be more, Greek and Latin had already kind of started being used for medical purposes, legal purposes, that kind of thing. So he wanted a sacred language. And that is what the angels, and so everything that you could say about what is a sacred language, what does it do? What is it for? Is it symbolic? Is it literal? Well, there's yes to both of those, there's a lot of different avenues you could take in exploring a culture's sacred language. But at the base, that's what he was trying to do, was give us our own sacred language that we Westerners could call ours. And that's where it comes from.
Mm. And another thing that I was thinking is that the Golden Dawn and later occultists reinterpreted these material in ways that sometimes diverged greatly from his original records.
Oh, yeah.
So where do you see the most significant differences between these Enochian system and the way modern magicians have approached it?
Well, this is what I call Neo-Enochian. So basically anything that the Golden Dawn came up with and anyone who followed them. So Crowley's Enochian system is Neo-Enochian. Most of the books you find these days are, unless they specifically name themselves as D purist, or that they're researching only D's journals, which is kind of where I come from. And when I say only D's journals, I mean, that's the basis. But I'm not bringing in the later stuff that the Golden Dawn did. And where it changes is, number one, the Golden Dawn did not have access to D's original journals. They were working 100% from Casaubon's A True and Faithful Relation, which was only the second half, I'd say, of D's journals. And they missed all the stuff I said earlier about where the angels gave them new versions of the tools and told them how to use them and how to make the system more powerful. None of that. The Golden Dawn had not seen any of that when they formulated their system. So they sat down with Casaubon, and I always tell students, you got to think of this, okay? We think of research as just sitting down at a computer screen, typing away and getting what we want. But you got to picture the late 1800s and someone like MacGregor Mathers, or probably more likely William Westcott, the founders of the Golden Dawn, going to the British Museum, this dark, cold place lit only by candles or maybe gas lamps, and they only had a short while to sit in this dark room with this thick book that was densely written in Shakespearean style English, and try to make heads or tails of it. And you just imagine them just feverishly taking notes, writing down everything that caught their attention. So they didn't really understand what they were looking at. They were just beginning. They were taking literally the first stabs at studying this material. And what they ended up coming up with was a thing called Book H. And Book H focused entirely on the watchtowers, which is, again, I don't want to get ahead, but the watchtowers it's a large table of letters. It's an encrypted table of letters, just absolutely full of angel names and names of God in the angelical language. And if you know how, you can decrypt the angels' names out of the table and then ask them for things. So, I'm losing my train of thought. Oh, the Book H. So the Golden Dawn, they really focused on that, the watchtowers, the great table of the earth, as it was called. And they kind of came up with their own methods of finding angel names out of it, because they either didn't understand or didn't care about D's instructions for decrypting the names. And they came up with their own ideas, and they created well, sort of created, but they came up with what's called the Table of Union. And again, I know this is all, Greek to many people, but they kind of misconstrued a lot of what was in Dee's Grimoire and came up with their own way of handling the system. And another big difference is that in Dee's journals, the angels gave him the Great Table of the Earth. Way in the back of his journals, the angels delivered a message to Dee and Kelley that was encrypted. And they told them how to decrypt it using the Great Table. When they tried to decrypt it using the Great Table as the key, it didn't result in any message. And they just said, no, you need to rearrange the tables, then decrypt it. And then they got their message. It worked. And Dee made a note, the angels gave us this new version of the table. This is so great. This is wonderful. Awesome. So Mathers or Westcott, sitting in that dark room by candlelight, flipped to the back of the book and saw that entry and the note saying, this is the new version of the table. They had no idea that was just to decrypt a single message. And they thought that the angels had delivered a new form of the table, which superseded the old one. They call it the Reformed Table of Raphael, because Raphael was the angel talking. So the Golden Dawn decided to use the Reformed Table of Raphael instead of the correct table. So they used the Reformed table, and they came up with their own methods of decrypting names from it. And then they came up, because they're the Golden Dawn, with ways to assign correspondences, tons and tons of correspondences to every single square, every letter in the Great Table. And that is the formation of the Golden Dawn's version. Those correspondences, the Great Table, and of course Golden Dawn rituals, which Dee wouldn't have even, they didn't exist in Dee's time. So those are your key differences. So they are really two very, very different systems.
So now the question is, would it still work despite the fact that it was somewhat inaccurate?
Yes. And what I tell people is that it's not true Enochian magic. It's not what Dee recorded, for sure. It borrows from it, but that's what the Golden Dawn did. They tried to pound every square peg into every round hole they could find because they wanted to create a comprehensive Western system. And so their version of Enochian magic has had over 100 years now of being an established, intrinsic, and irremovable part of the Golden Dawn current and tradition. And yes, within that context, it works. So, I tell people, if you're going to use one or the other, then pick one and stick with it, because both work, but you're going to have more trouble if you're trying to mix them together. I've even seen attempts to mix them together, and it doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that it would be a good idea for the Golden Dawn to reform their system based on the more accurate information that is available, or do you think they would just mess the system up?
I've been there. Yeah, I've been there for over 20 years, probably closer to 30 at this point, and I have thought about that almost every day I've been there. Here's the problem. If you fix the Enochian material in the Golden Dawn, you've now created a separate current. It's not the Golden Dawn anymore. It's Golden Dawn based, but you've now created a different system. So I don't feel right about just, like the god names in the four quarters, like they've got the let's see, which ones are switched? I think they've switched the water and fire tablets. I think those are the two that got switched, or it might have been fire and earth. I'm trying to do this off the top of my head, and it's been so long. But to switch those back means you're now using entirely different god names in the different quarters. And you would have to change a lot in the inner order as well. And it just, you have to ask what's more important, the tradition that has been built for over 100 years, or my attempts to go in and fix everything just because I think I know better and I want it, and doesn't need to match Dee's original. I mean, like I said, it's had 100 years to do its thing, to build up its own power, its own egregore, its own current. So I think the negatives outweigh the positives in trying to just go in and gut out the Neo-Enochian stuff from the Golden Dawn and make it de-purist. It's just, I don't think that's how it works. I don't think that's how the Golden Dawn system works.
Do you think that in terms of magical practice and, what a practitioner gets out of them, is there a difference between when practitioners use the Neo-Enochian magic from the Golden Dawn as opposed to the Enochian magic from John Dee? What kind of differences would a practitioner find engaging with one or the other?
I mean, really not much. That's why I say, pick one and stick with it, and you'll get there. So there's not enough of a difference to really say. But if I were to be really forced to say to put my finger on a difference, I would say that in the Golden Dawn version, it's a little more structured, and it's part of a larger system. Like if you're following it right, you don't even mess with Enochian until you're in the inner order. So you've had all this training in the outer order, and it's a little safer. Whereas if you're going for the deep purist stuff, that's seat of your pants, very raw and visceral. And I think that would be the main difference. You depending on who you are, you may be more aligned toward one or the other. You want more of a I want to say institutionalized, but I don't want to use that in a bad term. I mean, just in the sense that it's part of a larger system and tradition. Whereas D, you're just kind of, and you're messing around with some very, very powerful and dangerous angels. And it's Solomonic. There's not a lot of safeguards in Solomonic magic. There are a few, but not like in the Golden Dawn system. So that's the difference, practically.
What do you think there are the most overlooked insights in the original sources?
Oh, wow. There's so many. I'm afraid I'm
going to
answer questions that you're intending to ask me later, but I'll just go ahead anyway. One of the very first things I ever published on Enochian Magic, it was an essay that was given to me by an angel. And when I say given to me by an angel, I was asleep, and the angel approached and just said one word. And I snapped awake, and I had to jump out of bed and go write the entire essay down before it left my head. It was that intense. And it was called A Discourse on the Enochian Watchtowers. And what I really point out in that essay, what was pointed out to me in that moment, was that Dee's system is a Merkava system. The four watchtowers are literally structured after the four cherubim in Ezekiel's vision and in St. John's vision. The heptarchia are the seven spirits who stand before the throne of God that are described by St. John. The whole Enochian system is a picture of the throne room of God. So when you're dealing with the Enochian system, and the reason why people say it's so powerful and so dangerous is because you're messing around with the Hayat, the holy Hayat. And if you don't know who those are the angels who serve directly to the throne of God. These are the angels who can trod right over you and crush you and your entire city and not even know they've stepped on you. I mean, these are extremely powerful beings that do not take kindly to being pestered by apes from a dirt ball in the middle of the Milky Way. So yeah, it is powerful. It is dangerous, but it is a Merkava system. That is one of the things that people overlook. So a lot of the things that people overlook is just because of Neo-Enochian. Like they think the four watchtowers are the elemental tablets. They think that the watchtower of the east has angels of air, and the watchtower of the south has angels of fire. And that's not how it works at all. There are elemental angels among the angels in the tables, but the angels in those tables are primarily zodiacal. And that's also something I wrote in the Discourse on the Enochian Watchtowers, is the relationship between the tables and the signs of the zodiac. God, I could just go on coming up with examples of stuff. And it's just, like I said, Dee was trying to make a Christian Kabbalah. And if you understand that was his intent, it really makes the system come across different, People, especially starting back in the 1990s, people had this view of Enochian that it was just this weird alien system. Like it contacted aliens from other planets or other dimensions, and it was this weird technology. And it's not. It is a weird technology, but not in the sense they were viewing it. It is a Renaissance angel magic system. And it just happens to be geared toward the highest and most powerful angels. So that I think if people would study Dee's history, like what his perspective on it was, then that would change their perspective on it as well. I mean, I've literally had to write entire essays trying to convince people that the Enochian angels, first of all, there's no such thing as Enochian angels. The angels in Dee's journals are angels like any other. I mean, he was talking to Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel. He called Anael Venus. And those were the four archangels mainly, were the ones in charge of delivering the entire system. So, these were not aliens. These are angels. So, it just the perspective that has been lost on Dee's system, mainly thanks to the Golden Dawn and, of course, Crowley. And then, of course, along came chaos magic and all that stuff that just ate it up and took it off in their own direction. So, yeah, a perspective, I think, is what gets lost on Dee's original system and what he was really trying to do and who he was really trying to contact.
I was actually about to ask about angels, but you kind of half answered that as well. Like, what are
See,
the
I knew I was going to do that.
What are the angels?
They're just angels. Yep. Michael delivered all the tools and furniture and the ring, because he's the one who gave that to Solomon in the first place. Raphael, of course, brought the book of Loga, and he described the book and the language, of course, in it. And he described it as a medicine because he's the physician of God. Gabriel is the one who brought the parts of the earth and a lot of the subsystems that came after Loga was given. He brought all of that. So, yeah, the traditional Hebrew angels are 100% present and in charge of the entire Enochian system. So they're not just weird interdimensional aliens who are contacting us with some kind of weird machine or anything. That this is magic. This is mysticism, 100%.
For those who may be wondering, why the angels and not other entities? Is it because it is very framed within a Christian system?
Yeah, I was going to ask exactly what perspective you meant on that. And if you mean from Dee's perspective, oh, yeah. I mean, Dee was a devout Christian. He and Elizabeth were unique for their time because, remember, this was at a time when Catholic and Protestant were very much at war. I mean, Elizabeth came after Bloody Mary herself, and Dee himself had been put in jail at one point for, sorcery and stuff like that. But Dee and Elizabeth were very progressive for their time. Like, even though they understood the political realities of Protestant versus Catholic, the Queen herself has been quoted as saying, "Christ is Christ." It doesn't matter whether you're Protestant or Catholic. So Dee, being as devout as he was and progressive as he was, honestly, for the late 1500s, I mean, he was an absolute asshole to his wife, and I make no excuses for that BS, but very progressive, but he would not have accepted anything other than angels. So, I mean, even if Zeus had come to him, he would have been like, "Who the hell are you? Get out of here, demon," and he would have only spoken to the angels. And like I said, even in his own writings, his goal was to follow the footsteps of the prophets and learn what they had learned. So his intent from the very beginning was to contact Judeo-Christian angels. And you can definitely see this in the books because, like I said before, I wrote, when I wrote my books, I had to write a small book first, which was just a collection of all of his notes and stuff, so I could convert them into the full book. And the reason I had to make that condensed version of Dee's journals is because the angels non-stop gave him sermons. I mean, it never ended. You'd have a 5-page session with one of these angels, and you'd maybe get 3 or 4 nuggets of magical wisdom out of there, and the rest was just sermons. And I really believe the reason is because Dee expected it. Dee wouldn't have accepted an angel who didn't sit there and give sermons, because that's what he thought angels did. In my case, an angel's never given me what I would call a sermon like that, but I also have a different perspective. So yeah, they could not have given him that information if they had come in any other form.
Do you think the practitioners could achieve the same magical results that they achieve with Enochian Magic via a different system that doesn't deal with angels but with other entities or no entities at all? Or do you think that what people can achieve via Enochian Magic can only be achieved via that system?
Yeah, see, this gets into something that I have to address a lot, because I get asked, which is more powerful, this or that? Is you're making a talisman, is it more powerful to use metal or use consecrated parchment? Or is this ritual more powerful than the, I have people say, can you give me the most powerful angelic ritual you've ever, and here's the thing, it doesn't work that way. None of this is based on power levels. That's D&D stuff, okay? This kind of stuff works on a calling. And the reason that I use Enochian Magic and find it so powerful, I mean, aside from the fact that they're the throne angels, but personally, the reason I'm called to interface with it is because the very first time someone handed me an Enochian Magic book, and it was a terrible one, I opened it up, and the first thing I saw were some of the angels' names in this weird language, and it just, I knew I had to do this. In that moment, I have to know what this is. It's the same way I felt about Abramelin. I read the book of Abramelin and I'm like, this is it. I have to do this. This is the real thing. And different people are going to have that experience with different systems and in different ways. And it's a calling. It's your spirits, your angels, the ones you work with or will be working with, because they're fourth dimensional. They can see you through all of time and space. And it's them coming to you and saying, do this. And sometimes they'll drag you kicking and screaming, even if you don't want to do it. So it's a calling. And what makes it powerful is your relationship with it, your relationship with those angels or spirits. I see people who don't understand that, and they try to do these spells, but they have no connection with anything. And so they just stand there and shout out into the darkness. And then when their spell fails, they reinterpret the results to say that they succeeded. Well, I really needed $500 to save my car from getting repossessed. Well, that didn't work, and the car got repossessed. But the spell taught me that I didn't need that car, and no, it either worked or it didn't. And so it's not the system you're using. It's your calling to it and your connection to it and your connection to those spirits. So that when you call, number one, someone hears you. And number two, they have a reason to give a damn when you call. And that's why that is so important. So yeah, it's not about what's powerful. It's not about, I can't give you the most powerful angelic evocation spell because it's the same spell you've seen before. It's just how it works for me, So
yeah, I wasn't specifically asking about what was most powerful. My question was more about whether there is something that can be magically achieved with Enochian magic that cannot be done via other systems, as opposed to whether it's more powerful than other systems. It's more about the type of magical results as opposed to whether it's more powerful. That's kind of the... But I also think that what you said was valuable.
Yeah, I guess there is a new, because most people, when they ask that, they're asking which is more effective, which is more powerful, which is
that was
the best results.
Yeah.
Well, that's a hard one, but I will say there are some things, and it goes back to that you're dealing with the throne angels thing, and it comes very much down to Liber Loga. If you look at the other aspects of the system, the Heptarchia dealing with the seven archangels, but also their entire hierarchy of royal angels. That's fairly standard Solomonic stuff. All the powers that the angels are given in that system, it's the stuff you'll find in the Grimoires. It's not unusual. Same thing with the Watchtower. The Great Table of the Earth is kind of an alchemical tablet, and most of the angels in there have alchemical powers, transmutation of substances, and the knowledge of stones and gems and minerals, and that kind of thing. So there's nothing so unique there. But then you got Liber Loga. And the Book of Loga, like I said, it's a collection of what's supposed to be the tables of heaven. And it's not a book you can just read. It's a collection of 49 tables of 49 by 49 squares, front and back of each page, so 98 squares per leaf. And they are filled with letters that is purportedly in the angel's language. And these tables are the gates of heaven. So you look at the 12 signs of the zodiac and you divide them up, so you get 48 gates. And each of the 48 angelical keys that I mentioned before, those poems, those invocations, you have to sing those or recite those to open the tables of Loga. And when you open them, the angels come out and they will either teach you about the mystical forces that are contained in the tables, Or it's briefly mentioned by one of the angels, you can step through the gate you've just opened and visit their cities like Enoch did. So I don't know, unless you're going to go back into old Merkava mysticism, which is very difficult because we don't really know about all their techniques and practices. The Gnostics did ascension, but again, we have some of the rituals, but not really all of the instructions, if that makes sense. You know, we know that they did these baptisms that took you up and up and up through the heavens, but we don't actually know what the ritual looked like, is what I'm saying. So there are other systems of Merkava style ascension where you actually go into the heavens and explore them. But within our modern Western systems, I don't know of any other system that really does that. So there's your main thing that's different, that you can actually go into their cities or learn what the angels have to teach. If you don't go, you can call them and learn what they have to teach about these realms of heaven. So that is unique, at least within our modern systems, you know. Although I got to be fair, the Golden Dawn, with their obsession over scrying everything, they kind of do the same thing, especially with their version of the Enochian system. They love to travel into the squares of the Great Table and explore because like I said, they put correspondences with every letter. So they'll actually use the Great Table as an astral gate and they'll project through. So in a way, they are kind of hitting on that same thing, even though they didn't even know D had been told he could do that with Loga. So, but still, I think Loga itself and the ritual that we call Jebophal, which is the ritual of using the 48 keys to open the 48 gates, those are very unique and very powerful and potentially dangerous.
What's the danger?
Because I don't know how familiar your audience will be with the Jewish practices, but they have a thing called counting the Omer. And what we call Jebophal, or we don't know how that word was pronounced. It could be Jebophal, Gebophal, Gibafal, Jebophal, Jebafal, but I say Jebophal. That ritual is Dee's version of counting the Omer. This goes back to the fact that Dee was trying to create a Christian Kabbalah. So it's a 49-day ritual, which is just 1 day short of the 50 that the counting the Omer is. And counting the Omer is about opening the gates of Binah, opening the gates of understanding and the gates of wisdom. So in counting the Omer, you have to sit and do meditations every single day for 49 days. And every day you're meditating on a different sphere of the tree. And they do it through meditating on the acts of the prophets. So for example, Chesed, divine mercy, is associated with Abraham. Why? Because Abraham almost killed his own son, but God stopped him at the last minute and showed mercy. So you're supposed to contemplate that biblical story and what it has to teach you about divine mercy. Terrible story, by the way, but that's an example. And you do this for 49 days over different prophets, different gates. And then on the 50th day, you can go all the way up from Malkuth. Well, they actually start from Binah and work down, but you actually start from they start from Hesed. You can't go to Binah. They start from Hesed and work down to Malkuth. And when they've opened all 49 or all 50 of those gates, on the last day, the 50th gate is Binah. And it just parts a little teeny bit. Only Moses was allowed to go through that gate. And then later Christians said Jesus did it too. He came through that gate. But we mere mortals can't do that. So it just cracks a little bit to let a little beam of light from God shine on us. And that's where we get our wisdom and our inspiration. And you can have all sorts of knowledge and, at the end of those 50 days. So Dee created the same thing, only using these tables of Enoch, these tables of Loga. And it's a 49-day ritual. You spend 48 days opening up each gate of heaven. And you don't have to contemplate prophets or anything. It's more of a Renaissance angel magic kind of ritual where you're an invocation to God, where you ask for certain things, and then you invoke the angels and you ask them for certain things, and it goes on and on. And then on the 49th day, just like in counting the Omer, you go in, and that last gate, the one you're not allowed to open, kind of pops open a little bit, and divine revelation comes through. And anytime you're talking about opening all of those gates of heaven and letting the light of God shine on you, you're dealing with dangerous stuff. Just like Yahweh told Moses, if you see my face, you'll be incinerated, so I can only show you my back. Another example is when Gabriel was sent against the forces of Sennacherib, and they were all sleeping at night, and Gabriel came into the middle of their camp and just parted one of the gates of heaven so that they could hear the angels singing, and they were all incinerated in their sleep. So opening those gates to the throne room is inherently spiritually dangerous. You can read Merkava literature. They talked about it a lot. You could come back insane. You could come back an apostate, or you could come back a heretic. Only wasn't the Baal Shem Tov. Who was it? It was one rabbi that famously was able to make the ascent and come back and be okay and actually have received the wisdom and made good use of it. Everyone else just kind of went nuts. So that's your danger, is you're dealing with very, very low. You're dealing with massive physical, natural forces. You know, it's the spiritual version of toying around with a hadron super collider, basically. So that's where the danger comes in.
Marco says Rabbi Akiva.
Oh, I just saw that. Yes, it was Rabbi. We're getting a lot of those. I always mix up the Baal Shem Tov and Rabbi Akiva. I don't know why, but yeah, it was Rabbi Akiva who came back okay. But everyone else just went insane in one way or another. Or one went apostate. And I'm sure I would probably like that guy, because he probably came back going, you know, guys, all our scriptures are wrong, right? And honestly, yeah, I guarantee you Akiva knew that, you know, but he came back with the right attitude and knew not to let it really disrupt his life. And that's the main thing.
What are the experiences that you've had with Enochian Magic that have been the most transformative for you? If you want to share them.
First thing, full disclosure, I have not performed Jebofal. Jebofal, opening those 48 gates, is something you do, and this is in Dee's records. The angel said, only when God calls you. You don't do this out of curiosity. So when I was using Enochian Magic fairly regularly all through writing the books. They were talking to me, telling me what to write. It was a very interesting relationship. But I was doing it all with tools that were good enough. You know, like I didn't have a holy table made of sweet wood. I had a double cube altar like the Golden Dawn uses, and I painted the holy table figures on that. I didn't have a wax seal of truth. I got a big, I had a circle of wood that I painted it on. So it's like everything was approximated. And it worked. But once I got all the books written, the angel said, all right, don't bother us again until you've made all the tools the way we told Dee to make them. And you do everything right. Now that you've got it all, now that you've figured the whole system out, you've published these books saying how to do it right, now you're going to do it right. And since then, I've been working on, like, I've got the holy table now. We're still working on painting it. I've got the ring, but I haven't inscribed it yet. So, you know, the pieces are all coming together. But that period of doing the good enough when I was writing the books and I was doing rituals every day and I was talking to these angels, it transformed my life, because it was like, it was all part of my destiny coming to fruition, if that makes sense. You know, this was at a time in my life when I was just this nobody in Florida arguing with people online, you know. But it was as I was working with these angels, and I wanted to figure out and decipher the Enochians. So really, we started that in the late 90s on a list called the Enochian L list. Some of your reviewers are probably familiar with it. Massively, incredible people on that list that were Enochian experts, some of whom aren't even with us anymore. And we all got on that list, and I was nobody. I was a little guy in that group, but I was trying to participate. And we analyzed every period and comma in Dee's journals. It was insane. And so I wanted to continue that and really figure the system out. And it was as I was working with these angels and deciphering everything and calling them all the time, that's when Llewellyn contacted me and said, hey, we want you to write books for us. And that's when I was contacted by another member of the Golden Dawn who wanted me and Chick Cicero to meet. And that's when I joined the Golden Dawn. And I've been there, like I said, for almost 30 years now. So, I mean, there's just two examples. I mean, it's like everything in my life was leading to up to that point just started to blossom and bear fruit right at that period when those are the angels that I was working with most heavily. And it was just, Man, I would go back and live through that time again over and over if I could, because what a heady, exciting time that was. I just felt like such a badass. I'm hanging out with Chick Cicero and I'm writing books for Llewellyn, and you know, it was all new and wonderful, and that all came from working with those angels. They will bring you into your destiny. I mean, if they've called you to work with them, then they have plans for you. So it all fits together.
Do you still practice with them, and what other types of changes and transformations in yourself or in your life have you seen?
Oh, that would be way too much to go into here, because it's not just the Enochian angels, but my main central practice is the Abramelin tradition. So at the same time I'm talking to these angels, I did Abramelin back in 97. And then I joined the Golden Dawn in 98 because my guardian angel said, go there. Yeah, the Abramelin, if you're doing Abramelin right, it will change your life. That's its point. And boy, has she changed. My guardian angel's changed my life incredibly. Now
Did you perform like the whole Abramelin?
100% by the book.
Wow.
And I also give classes now where I teach others to do it. I don't want to divert the conversation, but there's a lot of misunderstandings about the Book of Abramelin, and people think that it's not doable in the modern world, and it absolutely is. I did it in 97, and I've led now, I would say, when was that class started? I've probably had 5 or 6, maybe 7 rounds of students that I've led through the operation through my classes. And I'm not a guru. Once you start, it's you and God. You know, I'm not in there to tell you what to do, but I have a very lengthy classes on the tradition and the system and how to do it. So that's been very transformative. The Enochian Magic. Now, like I said, the angels told me don't call us again until you've got all the tools. So I have put them largely on hold, but not entirely. Because this is something I should have said when you asked me what people misunderstand, and that I wish people understood about Enochian Magic, is that Enochian Magic was never intended to be restricted to just the Enochian, what we call the Enochian system, the Watchtower, the Heptarchia. D was given those tools to use for all angels. They are angelic scrying tools. You can use them for any celestial entity you want to contact. And people don't understand that like in the Heptarchia, the angels in charge of the Heptarchia are the same 7 angels as listed in the Heptameron. So even though I'm not using a holy table and doing specifically Enochian scryings of the specific watchtowers, I am a Solomonic practitioner. And as a practitioner, I have 7 altars scattered throughout my house. Each one is in an area that is correspondent to the angel's planet. And I have 7 altars to all 7 archangels, and each one of those, these are the same angels I'm working with in the Enochian system. So I have like the 7 ensigns of creation, which are talismans in the Enochian system representing those angels. Those are on those altars. So I am still working the Enochian system, even though I'm kind of going afield from what D was doing specifically in his journals. And remember, we don't have any records of D actually using the Enochian system. So we just have the material. So I'm actually applying it. I'm kind of taking a page from his book, and I'm using kind of Heptameron style methods, with these particular 7 angels, but I'm incorporating the material he got in his Enochian system as well. So there's no point when the Enochian system does not underlie what I do, with the exception of Abramelin. Abramelin is pure Abramelin. Nothing ever gets mixed into that. So yeah, it's always there. Those Enochian angels are always there with me. And yes, they want me to finish the tools so I can get back to playing around with the Watchtower angels and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it is very, I wouldn't say central, but Abramelin is central, but it definitely underpins pretty much everything I do in the Solomonic system, because I do consider the Enochian system a Solomonic system.
And why is that?
Well, because D used Solomonic methods to contact the angels, and he was contacting angels from the Solomonic system with Anael and the 4 archangels and all of them. The Heptarchia, the 7 archangels from the Heptameron. And they simply gave him a better, a new and improved version of all of that. It is still a standard Renaissance angel summoning system and scrying system, I should say. So in that sense, there's nothing unique or different about it. What's unique or different is that the tools themselves have all been improved and made more powerful. So yeah, its structure, its origin, and even its content is still very Solomonic. Not Solomonic as in having to do with King Solomon, but Solomonic as in coming from that Grimoire tradition. Because it's called Enochian because it has to do with the prophet Enoch. So
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know that the topic was more on the Enochian, but now I'm curious about the Abramelin ritual and the knowledge and conversation. So what do you think about, because you said that there are some misunderstandings about the ritual, and can you share a bit more about that and about your personal experience?
So the misunderstandings you want to hear about?
And your experiences, if you want to share.
Yeah, number one, the Holy Guardian Angel is not your higher self. That is a big one. We have Israel Regardi and Aleister Crowley to thank for that nonsense. It is not your higher self. Your higher self, and I try to stress this, when you think of the structure of your soul, like the Kabbalistic model of the soul, your higher self is in the supernals. Your higher self is in heaven. You know, your soul was split in two at your creation, and half of you came down here and half of you stayed up there. And the half of you that stayed up there, your true soulmate, your soulmate is not on earth, people. It's up there. And it is crying and longing for your return someday. The guardian angel is, have you ever read the Hymn of the Pearl? Oh, love the Hymn of the Pearl. And in that story, for your listeners or for your viewers, in the Hymn of the Pearl is the main character has gone into Egypt. In other words, the world. But he came from the kingdom of light in the east. He is the son of the king. But when he went into Egypt, he forgot. He got amnesia and he didn't remember. So he's been toiling away in Egypt at nonsense that means nothing for years until the king gets tired of it and sends a messenger. And the messenger's job is to wake him up and say, dude, you don't come from here. You come from there. Your father is the king. You are the king's son, and wake you up, inspire you, and get you back home. And that's what the Hymn of the Pearl is describing. And that is Abramelin. That is your guardian angel. Your guardian angel is the messenger. It is an outside entity who will come to bring you back to your higher self someday. What other misconception? Oh, well, I mean, that the guardian angel is an angel. That's a big thing. The holy guardian angel is not an angel. It is a much higher being. It does not answer. It does not go. It is not in Tiferet on the tree of life. It is not on the tree of life at all. It does not answer to Michael. It does not answer to any angel. It is not subservient to any planet. Even though there's a lot of solar imagery in the Book of Abramelin, the Holy Guardian Angel is not a solar angel. And most importantly, it is not the guardian angel you were assigned at birth. There's another big mistake people make. The Western concept of the guardian angel comes to us from Plato, specifically Plato's Republic, where an angel is chosen from the stars and is assigned to you. So, your rising sign, or actually more specifically, your Almutin designates your guardian angel. And this is the angel that he embodies your birth chart. He does answer to the stars. He does answer to a guardian, an archangel. But his job is to lead you through the path of life that is established in your birth chart, and to help you understand it and to help you overcome aspects of it if you need to. The holy guardian angel is higher and not associated with your birth chart in any way. In fact, it's very anti-birth chart. You're supposed to go to the holy guardian angel when you want to ignore your birth chart and overcome it entirely. It's very Gnostic. You're not supposed to be beholden to the stars. You're supposed to be ascending past them. And the Book of Abramelin is very Gnostic in that sense. So that's a couple of misunderstandings. They don't understand the being that they're even trying to contact. God, huge one. The supernatural assistant from the PGM is not your holy guardian angel. Liber Samek is not an alternative to the Book of Abramelin. You will not get the same results. Abramelin is what we call a crowning ceremony. It's not an evocation. You're not just calling this angel up to say hi. You are wedding yourself to that entity. You are letting that entity move into your skull, where it will then live for the rest of your life. Whereas something like Liber Samek or an evocation ceremony, you and the entity stay separate. So that's a big difference. And God, this could go on for hours and hours. And I would say, but let me end with this one. Probably one of the worst is what I said earlier. People think that it can't be done today. People think that the Book of Abramelin requires you to quit your job, leave everything in your life, and go move out into a house out in the middle of nowhere and spend 6 or 18 months, depending on which version you're going with. And that is not true. You can do Abramelin. The book even says if you're not your own master and you have a boss, you can continue to work. There are a lot of restrictions, things you can't do, but the idea that it's not possible to do in today's world is just overblown nonsense, because people think the ritual requires things of you that it doesn't. And what's really odd is they think it doesn't require things of you that it does. So that's why I created the classes.
And how long did it take for you? Did you have a set time? Yeah. Is it the ritual that you do and the one that you teach, how long is it?
Well, okay, the one I did was the 6-month one, because at the time that's all that was available. George Den and what was the other man's Stephen Guth had not published their translation of the German original yet. So I was still working on Mather's version and those terrible word squares he had at the end. But as far as what I teach both. And this is very important because people do ask me, which one should I do? And what I tell them is that when you start Abramelin, day one, there is going to be an X amount of time it takes you to achieve the work that your guardian angel has for you. And just because the rite ended doesn't mean that stopped. So you could do the rite for 6 months, and it could still take you 5 years to get to where your guardian angel wants you to be. You could do the rite for 18 months, and it could still take you 5 years to get where you're. And what I stress is that 5 years that's what we're looking at, not how long the rite lasts. Now, which one should you go with? I often get that one a lot. A lot depends on you and your circumstances. Now, I did the 6 months, so I can't sit on a high horse and tell people, well, you have to do the 18-month one. But I will admit, if results are what you're wanting, that 18 months is going to do a lot more for you than just 6. But don't think that the 18 months means that, okay, now I've achieved and I can quit. No. That's where your work starts, at the end of the 18 months or at the end of the 6 months. So, it depends on your circumstances. If your life will only give you 6 months that you can be sure of, that you have to be stable. I mean, you can't travel while you're doing this. You can't start a new job, start new schooling. You can't do any of that kind of stuff. So you have to stay put for 6 months. And if you can't do that for 18 months, then, it can be achieved in 6 months. And also keep in mind, our world moves faster. So it might have taken 18 months in, the 1400s, whereas missing, disconnecting from your social life for 6 months today could even be equivalent to 18 months in the 1400s. So it's all very malleable, and it was meant to be, because throughout the book, Abraham states that, here's the best case scenario of what you need to achieve. But if you can't achieve it this way, you can do this. And if you can't do this, then look at your circumstances and figure out how close you can get. So it is meant to this is so difficult. This is another misunderstanding people have. They think, oh, well, I can just change it any way I want. So I'm going to I'm going to add in Liber Smek while I'm doing the final 7 days. And I'm going to make the sigil for my guardian angel and put that on the altar. And I'm just going to, because this is how I want to do it. No, you have to do what the book says to do. It just doesn't give it in a step-by-step, here is how you do it. It allows you to do it in the way that your life circumstances will allow you to do it. Like the working thing. If you're your own boss, then by all means, delegate, responsibilities to other people in your company and go retreat for 6 months or 18 months. If you're not, and you have a job and you have to eat, keep going to work. But you can't have a job where you're traveling around all the time and going to parties and going to events and conferences and stuff like that. You've got to stay socially isolated as much as possible. You go to work, come home. That's all I did for 6 months.
Thank you for sharing that. It's I see that there are some comments in the chat saying the next episode with you needs to be on the Abramelin.
Yeah, a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, or they can also check out your courses.
Absolutely. They're let me just say, some of the classes in there are 3-hour-long classes. It is huge, and there's a lot. You can't just sit down and read the book of Abramelin and then think you've got it. There's so much going on there between the lines, and there's so much that you need to know about where Abraham himself was coming from. And I think that's what and plus, even the title of the classes is the Abramelin tradition performing the rite in the modern world. So a lot of it is about how to do the rite in our modern circumstances. So I think people can get a lot out of those classes.
Yeah, definitely. And Andrew is putting your website in the chat. So is there something else that you think people should know about Enochian Magic, or indeed Solomonic or Abramelin ritual before?
Or anything.
Yeah, anything that you feel like you want to share, but that I haven't asked.
I'll be honest with you. I think you covered a lot of the main points that I try to cover with people with their misunderstandings of Enochian and Abramelin, as it turns out. That it is a Merkava system. It is you're messing with some very, very powerful angels. So don't go dicking around with them unless you really need them. We've covered that it's a calling, that it's not something you just pick up because you think it's more powerful than something else. Yeah, I can't think of anything else specifically. I'm sure I'll think of 1,000 things when this is over, but right at this moment, I think we covered a lot of really good myth debunking about Enochian, and I guess, not that we didn't cover it, obviously, but I really want people to understand that there's a difference between D system and the Neo-Enochian material, because there's so many conversations you'll have about Enochian where people will just start, oh yeah, and then I was working with the Watchtower of the East, all the air angels, and I was using the Tablet of Union, and it's like, wait, stop. None of that is in Dee's journal. So the more people understand what Dee wrote versus what the Golden Dawn came up with later, the more they'll understand the system.
I just remembered there's a question from the chat that says, what does Aaron think about women doing Wicca? I know a lady who does that and has no information on its history at all. I told her to research because it's a protection to do that. So I'm not sure how that's relevant to Enochian Magic, but
I'm a little confused. What do I think about women doing Wicca? I mean, Wicca's kind of female centric, isn't it? I mean, your high priestess runs the coven. I mean, absolutely, women should be doing Wicca. But so should men. I mean, I kind of started in Wicca. My wife is a 3rd degree. She was initiated by Oshani Lele because he's also a 3rd degree Gardnerian. He comes from Lady Sheba's line. So he actually comes from a rogue line from Lady Sheba's line. And Lady Sheba's line is a rogue line. So that's the kind of guy he was. He wouldn't do anything, above the board. He had to be a rebel and everything. But yeah, he initiated her up to 3rd degree. And I didn't follow in that. But I mean, that's kind of where I started. In the 90s, Wicca was it. Wicca was the big thing. And I can't imagine can't imagine not having women involved in Wicca. I mean, yeah, but as far as someone who like claims to be an expert but knows nothing about its history, I mean, that's not just Wicca, that's everything. I mean, that's Enochian, Solomonic, Golden Dawn, Thelema. I mean, there's I always tell people that it's concentric circles. And the smallest little circle in the center is always your absolutely dedicated, knowledgeable teachers and people who are moving forward the tradition and keeping it alive. And then people get less and less serious as the circles go out. And the biggest circle, the most people that you're going to meet are that the hangers-on, the fad followers. They don't know its history, nor do they care. They just, and some of them are frauds. Some of them are just trying to get money out of you. So, and if you run into someone who claims to be an expert, but you ask them a couple questions and they don't know the history and they get angry at you for asking the questions, or they start using, high speech that you can't understand what they're talking about, or they tell you it's above you and that you can't understand it until later. All of that is fraud talk. That's all just someone who doesn't know what they're talking about and is looking for something from you, either money or worship. So, yeah, but it's not a male or female thing. Everyone. We have problems with that. Both sexes in every field, not just magic either.
Yeah. Ethan then asked, has anybody taken these keys, converted them to audio waves, and analyzed them for anomalies? Is that a thing?
I haven't seen anyone do that. That would be interesting. I'm not sure what anomalies you'd be looking for exactly, but I think one of the biggest problems would be we don't know if we're pronouncing everything exactly right. So it would be hard to find specific patterns in there, because I could recite the keys and you see entirely different patterns than if you recited the keys. So, I do my best. Like I went through Dee's journals and I'm pretty sure I deciphered the method that he was using to show the phonetics for all the words. But, I've had people tell me that even in the angelical language, I misunderstood some of Dee's punctuation marks and they may not have meant what I thought they did. And by the way, that's great. Pick my work apart. I did not write those books to be chiseled in stone, final words on the angelical language. I wrote them so that other scholars and linguists, because I'm not a linguist, could pick up my work. And I was just trying to do the grunt work, like I said, and get it all into one place and then let other scholars pick up. So if I misused his pronunciation notes, by all means, write up something about it and publish it. And then I can correct it in later editions. But yeah, I think just because of our unsurety of how to really properly pronounce the words, like I said, is it Gebafal, Jebafal, Jabafal? We don't know. So yeah, it would be interesting, but I don't know if your results would ever be acceptable as being pure results. They you could always pick them apart and say, well, you didn't pronounce that word right, or are you supposed to sing them, chant them, speak them? I mean, there's a lot that we wouldn't know, because 400, 500 years have passed.
And Thomas is asking, what's your take on the vision and the voice? Which I did a recent video on.
Yeah, it's Thelema. Thelema's not my thing. I mean, again, we're talking about a separate thing from what Dee was recording. And yet it had 100 years to build its own steam. And Crowley was just going on with what he learned in the Golden Dawn. So I'm not going to call his visions and his scrying useless or wrong, but he was doing it wrong. I mean, like for instance, like in Jebafal, the very first key you're allowed to read is for the second table of the book. Because like I said, that first table we're not allowed to open. Only Moses and Jesus and God can open that table. I'm losing my train of thought. Repeat the question to me one more time. It was
your take on the vision and the voice.
The vision and the voice. So in Jebafal, you're supposed to start at the table 2, which is the highest table that we can reach, and you work your way down to the lowest table, which is where Tex is, the earth. And Crowley was using a more Golden Dawn version, and he was starting in Tex and going up. And so that was incorrect, but not like the end of the world. The only problem with it is that since it's Neo-Enochian, and it's specifically Thelemic Neo-Enochian, he's having all of these Thelemic visions. He's meeting Babylon. He thinks one of the tables represents the abyss. There's no such thing as the abyss in Dee's work. That's all, later stuff. So yeah, he's seeing all sorts of stuff in there that I just think are irrelevant to Loga. And another issue too is that Loga, a book of 49 by 49 tables, is literally Dee's next step after the book of Soiga, which was a book of 36 by 36 tables. So even there, Dee was trying to make his own version of something that already existed. And we know that in the book of Soiga, each table represents an astrological force. One is Aries, one is Taurus, one is Mars, one is the sun. And I believe the same is true of Loga, but I can't figure it out. I have spent years trying to figure out exactly how the forces are assigned to the 49 tables, and I can't find a single pattern that fits. So there's a lot we don't know. And so what Crowley was doing was just his own system and his own correspondences, and he was seeing what he expected to see. And I don't think that has any relevance to Dee's work. Now, if you're a Thelemite, I guarantee you there's gold in those visions from him, but I'm not a Thelemite, so.
Great. So I guess that we can wrap up our conversation, Aaron. Where can people find you if they want to find your work and get in contact?
You can. I do have a blog which I post to infrequently. It's aaronleitch.wordpress.com. Aaron Leitch is all one word. You can find me on Facebook, of course, as Aaron Leitch. I'm on there a lot. That's my main social media because I'm old. Doc Solomon's Occult Curios, you'll find that online. Just to let your viewers know, right now the international shipping is not working. So if you do want to order something and have me ship it overseas, just contact me and I'll send you an invoice. And I will have the international shipping set back up. It's just a roadblock at the moment, a stumbling block at the moment. And I wanted to say something else. Oh, I do have a Patreon account. If you're interested in supporting what I do, it's a very low noise Patreon account. I can go a while without posting things in there, but anytime I do, it's because I felt that was something worthwhile posting. I never make content for content's sake. But if you like what I do and want to support me on a regular basis, Patreon is a real, and again, it's Patreon, Aaron Leitch. And yeah, that's where people can find me online.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for joining me for this conversation. It was very enlightening, and I'm sure that my audience will love it.
Well, thank you for inviting me here again, because this was fun. I like this. I love just getting to sit and talk about this stuff. You almost never get to do that anymore,
Yeah, it's a good thing that we have a space to do that here.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, Aaron, and just stay in the studio, don't leave while I do the wrapping up of the video.
Okay.
But thank you again. So thank you all, guys, for listening to this conversation with Aaron Leitch. It was very enlightening for me, and I'm sure that it was for you as well. So leave me a comment down below and leave me an angel emoji if you watched until this point. It means that you're very committed to your learning, and I'm very proud of you. Also, I encourage you to support Aaron's work, and I also encourage you to support my work if you can afford it, if you can. And you can support me on Patreon, PayPal, Ko-fi, YouTube memberships. Super thank me in the comments. You find all the links in bio, the info box, everywhere. Also, I have 2 online courses going at the moment, one on the left-hand path and one on Italian witchcraft. So you can check them out on my website, drangelapuca.com. And yeah, otherwise, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and activate the notification bell so that you always get a notification when I upload a new video. Leave me a comment because I want to know what you thought about it, and share these and the other videos from the symposium around. I really appreciate you guys, and I appreciate any kind of support that you can give. So thank you all so much for being here, and I really hope that you guys stay tuned for all the academic fun. Bye for now.